You know, winter break has been quite boring. I pretty much have just stayed in my room, eat, sleep, and repeat the cycle the next day, but that doesn't come without its upsides. I discovered a webtoon so good and so unbelievably underrated that searching it on YouTube won't get you anywhere. That webtoon in question is called Nevermore. No. It is not a webcomic about Wednesday. I swear that show has ruined a generation of emo kids to come. This Nevermore actually came first, and in my opinion is way more interesting than whatever the hell Netflix made. I'm sorry, the show is really bad. So, long story short, our protagonist, Lenore, wakes up handcuffed to a suitcase in a realm between the living and the dead. Limbo, pretty much. Along the way, she becomes friend/love interest with Annabelle Lee. Nevermore is an academy that these students attend to try to pass to get back to the world of the living. A bunch of weird fantasy stuff happens, so on and so on. This world and even the story has been done before. I mean, Over the Garden Wall and even aspects of the Silent Hill games share the same sort of plot structure and limbo setting. But what makes Nevermore so special is how intricate and well thought out the plot is, even if it is a little Harry Potter and Owl House-ish. The art, the animation, and music surprisingly is beautiful to say the least. I have never read a webtoon of such high quality. I was audibly when I saw the little animations on the drawings or turned on my sound to hear the music perfectly sing to the actions of the characters, even if the music was just royalty free. God, I love the art style so much. I mean, look at it. It's gorgeous, and each character gets such a good design, even the forgettable ones. Without spoiling too much of the plot, I mean, that comes later, each student possesses a specter, which is a ghost that corresponds to the way they died or lived. For example, Annabelle Lee is the first Nevermore student to actually manifest, and her specter is the Lady in White, someone who passed away right before their wedding day. The top students are able to manifest, but as you can guess, Lenore and her friend group can't really do it yet. There are also a ton of other things that are set up in the first couple of chapters, like a talking, seemingly all-knowing crow or raven, I don't really know, these little spirit wisps that just wander about, and these giant monsters who patrol the outside of Nevermore. I almost forgot to mention the Deans, a pair of seemingly identical twins who observe and rule when need be. They are pompous and British. Let's actually get into the spoiler territory and cover the story so far. So, long story short, Annabelle Lee and Lenore escape this demon and make it to the academy. Immediately, things get weird with Annabelle completely switching her personality, now acting cold and rude towards Lenore, and Lenore being seen as the problem child for speaking out against the deans and actually questioning what the hell is going on. We then get the introduction to Duke, who is slowly becoming my favorite character because of his name. I mean, it's Duke, and he is clearly modeled after Prince. We also get introduced to Morella, who is Lenore's roommate, and I thought I was going to hate her, but she's cute, and is actually one of the few honest and good people that Lenore meets in the academy. And then we get introduced to the pompous group, or like the popular kids group, you know what I mean. We get people like Prospero, Annabelle Lee, Ada, and this cowboy-looking guy named Montresor. Fun fact, Montresor is a character in Edgar Allan Poe's Cask of Amontillado who kills a man he hates by trapping him behind a wall. I love little details like that. It's completely unnecessary and doesn't change a thing, but it does give you hints of what type of character he's gonna be in the future. I guess English class taught me something. Anyway, after the lesson of the specters and Annabelle Lee manifesting, everyone goes to bed, and Lenore has a dream about her death, and it's pretty traumatic. To keep it brief, her brother died trying to save her, and they both get crushed under a log. Or so we think, wink wink. The following day, the first exam of Nevermore commences, a giant hedge maze filled with every student's worst fears and phobias. Everyone groups up, and Annabelle Lee is with the popular group, leaving Lenore behind. Naturally, Duke and Lenore group up and head off into the maze. You're gonna be sick of me saying maze, so I'm gonna make a maze counter. Alright, starting now. So Duke and Lenore make it to the first phobia, a phobia of clocks, more specifically a fear of wasting time. I'm not going to be covering every single fear that appears in the maze, only the important ones. So this one's important because it establishes Duke's intelligence, his work smarter not harder attitude, and also a personal theory of mine that we'll get into later. The room is filled with keys and one lock. Duke, instead of trying out every single key like Lenore, tries to find a skeleton key and opens the lock with ease. Before moving along to the next trial, they hear Morella screaming, and without a moment's hesitation, Lenore and Duke move to save her. Morella is being attacked by a demon, and unsuccessfully, Duke and Lenore try to get it off her. Duke and Morella escape, but Lenore is almost killed until the pompous group comes to save them, with Annabelle Lee coming in clutch. Using her specter, she lifts up Lenore to safety. It's then revealed that Annabelle actually really likes Lenore and has a plan to escape with her. She doesn't really see anyone else as her friend, and is just using them as pawns. Lenore and Annabelle have this very strange connection connection even though they have supposedly never met each other. Or have they? So Morella actually manifests her own specter to fight off the demon and is a Valkyrie or something. The other students come in and we get to see this really cool Plague Doctor design. Again, God, I love this art style. It's so gothic, but it's done correctly, not in the way the fucking Wednesday show did it. Oops, I can't curse. Oh, no. Morella joins the Pompous team because she wants to, live. I like the detail that Lenore and Duke don't really blame her for doing so. I mean, they all want the same thing, but they do want to trade for information, and it's revealed that to activate a specter, you need to remember the feeling you had when you died. For example, the Plague Doctor guy Prospero gets a queasy skin-crawling feeling in order to activate his own specter. For Morella, it's the feeling of wanting to protect someone without worrying about the consequences. And for Annabelle, it's the feeling of betrayal. And for the hell of it, the Pompous group just throws out one of its members, Pluto, to be with Lenore and Duke. Pluto is by all accounts dead weight, but he's trustworthy and loyal. So Duke, Lenore, and Pluto make it to different types of phobias, and after some hijinks, they make it to agoraphobia, which is the fear of being seen by everyone. This one actually has the advent of being animated, so we see a lot of eye movement and stuff. It looks amazing, obviously, but also gives us insight in Pluto's character as he's very scared of this. In fact, he's mortified. He doesn't want to move on. But they make it anyway. We then get to one about trees, and this one doesn't scare Lenore, which is strange because she supposedly died under a tree. They then get to one about drowning, and since they can't specter, they just have to sink all the way to the bottom. So how do they achieve this? Well, Lenore ties an anchor to all of their legs so they can sink to the bottom, of course. Pluto is scared shitless again, but he still goes through with it and they all make it to the bottom. Lenore, on the way, gets caught by a hentai squid, a normal squid, and with the help of Duke, she barely makes it out. While Lenore is more concerned about moving on with the maids, Duke is pretty traumatized. We find out that Duke died drowning, and that's why he's so sensitive about Lenore almost drowning like he did when he died. This sort of demoralizes Duke, and he's pretty crestfallen throughout the rest of the arc.
Gives me connections.
Journey through the maze. I have a theory that Duke was a magician and died drowning like Houdini. He knew about the skeleton key, he's suave, and drowned, probably doing a trick. And later on, he's doing a coin trick. Anyway, they move right along to the next phobia. It's of, well... Oh, that's right, it's about dementia. The next room is about dementia. The next room is about dementia. Lenore gets separated from Duke and Pluto, and some revelations are made. Some pretty big ones, too. Lenore didn't actually die with Theo, her brother. She survived, and in grief then hopped up on drugs the doctors gave her. She slowly grew more increasingly mad. It doesn't help that her father locked her in an attic with this disgusting wallpaper around her, so much so that she went insane just by looking at it and ripped it up, which made people think she was even more crazy than she actually was. But just before the chapter ends, we get the big reveal that yes, Annabelle Lee and Lenore did know each other before they died. We flash back into a memory of her and Annabelle's first meeting, but before we can get any more than that, we are snapped out of the illusion with the help of Pluto. You gotta love how loyal Pluto is. He is totally cool with dying as long as Lenore and Duke come with him. It's really cute, and refuse to leave Lenore behind in that room. Even still, everyone is pretty bummed out except Lenore, but she convinces them to keep going and uses the scissors she packed on herself to cut open through the door that is covered with the vines. After some struggling, they all make it through the maze alive. So after that whole debacle, Pluto just manifests a specter out of nowhere, and his design has to be my favorite out of all the specters. Look, I'm not a furry, I swear it, but his design is just really cool, and well drawn. It reminds me of something that Vivzy Pop would make. His specter is a cryptid, who has been domesticated, which is strange because cryptids, according to the teacher, usually live outside the bounds of society. So having one be a sort of house cat can mean many things. I don't know what it means. Lenore's group was the last to exit the maze and one of the only ones where none of them manifested a specter. And this is strange because the maze was specifically designed for specter use. In fact, the group was so late on arrival that everyone thought they were dead. Even Annabelle Lee, whose mask of a prissy queen broke, and she, in a panic, looked around Nevermore to find her. She even snuck outside to where the deans are leading the students out who failed the maze. She gets caught by the deans, and initially they seem none the wiser to Annabelle Lee's intentions, but as soon as she thinks she got away with her lies, the deans show her that that they know her little plan about Lenore. In a final gambit to meet Lenore, she makes it to their meetup spot that she set up with her. Before losing all hope, Lenore meets her and both get to talking about Annabelle's plan and just what the hell is going on with them and their weird relationship. So Annabelle is pretty much only loyal to Lenore and also remembers her from her time living. Annabelle seems to be remembering backwards, while Lenore is remembering in order. So eventually their stories will meet in the middle and both decide when the time comes to tell each other their stories. For now, they keep their secrets. Annabelle needs Lenore to keep her friends and group as more disposable allies than actual friends, as Annabelle Lee is doing. Lenore obviously doesn't like that idea, as she doesn't like pretending and she doesn't have this master plan like Annabelle. She wings it most of the time. But before she can argue with her, Annabelle sort of seduces her. I know it sounds weird, but both of these girls are clearly in love with each other, and Annabelle says that both of them have died together in some way. If you're expecting romance, then this is probably the closest you're ever going to get to it. This story sort of reminds me of a fucked up version of Romeo and Juliet. Both of them are clearly in love with each other, but the story is set up in such a way that I don't see a very happy outcome, and if there is a happy outcome, then some people are gonna die. Welp, after their talk, they both take their leave with a parting look. Lenore's resolve is unchanged, and she still wants to save all of her friends if it's possible. The next arc hasn't really started yet, unless you paid for the extra 4 chapters, which, sorry, I'm not gonna do that. The chapters after the maze arc are dedicated to Lenore and Annabelle mostly scheming. While Annabelle is making alliances, Lenore actually wants to make real friends. She cements her friendship with Duke and Pluto and meets with 2 other students who are sort of rebels like them, Berenice and Eulalai. I don't know how to pronounce it. They also join Lenore and her group. Lenore and Annabelle pretend to be rivals and pretty much fool everybody. Lenore and her little group decide to play hooky and find their own secret hideout to plan a way to beat the Pompous group and manifest their own specters to get an edge over that. The deans, unbeknownst to Lenore, reveal that Theo actually attended Nevermore and was a much better student. He passed with flying colors and followed the rules to a T, while Lenore likes to bend rules to her own will. The deans hold a special dinner to celebrate the students' victory in the maze. They serve each of them their last meal, or what they would want as their last meal. It's some really good characterization, but more importantly, only one person is allowed to escape Nevermore into the land of the living, so yikes. Everyone pretty much goes crazy except Annabelle, who is unusually calm. Ada, who also hasn't manifested yet, is starting to lose her claim in the popular group as Montresor threatens everybody that gets in his way with murder. We then get this disturbing scene where Montresor is forcing Ada to get on her knees and grovel to him, begging to stay in the group. It's really evil, but it's also deserved because Ada is a bit of a bitch and she's also kind of sus. She may seem useless now and just your typical prissy bully, but I don't know, something strikes me about her that just makes me feel uneasy. Lenore and Annabelle speak once again and things get a little bit more intense. While they talk about their plan, Lenore accuses Annabelle of lying to her about everything, using her as fodder so she can escape to the land of the living by herself. In contrast, Annabelle puts her life in Lenore's hands and pretty much confesses that she'd rather be dead than not be with Lenore. Lenore, even after this confession, doesn't believe Annabelle entirely and sees her affection as empty, which is about to change in this next flashback. You see, Annabelle and Lenore in their previous lives have struck up a pretty healthy relationship and hang out with each other pretty much every day for the last 6 months in the living world. But that changes when Annabelle says that she's going to get married and has to leave Lenore. Annabelle confesses that she only spent time with Lenore on her father's wishes to help better Lenore after a stint of mania and depression after her brother died. It doesn't help that they kept her drugged up with ether and locked up in a fucking attic. Annabelle plays this like it's no big deal, but Lenore can see through her act, and with enough pressuring, Annabelle spits out the truth and her real self leaks for a moment. Annabelle doesn't want to get married, doesn't want to stop adventuring, doesn't want to have children, doesn't want to do the things that are expected of her. But duty is duty, and her mask slips on as quickly as it left, and she leaves Lenore, who is enraged. Of course, Lenore doesn't believe her and calls her a liar. She is then forced into a wheelchair and then drugged again after she smashes a vase of flowers. Okay, that was a lot. Without revealing too much, the next arc begins and it is essentially a big game of manhunt. Students who haven't manifested yet will be sent to a pocket dimension of a manor, and their goal is to make it to the top of the manor and ring a bell to pass. Any student who does this automatically wins, and those who fail, well, they fail. But this comes with a twist. Every student who has manifested will be summoned in their specter form in order to hunt down the other students, or else they will fail. Though it isn't an exam, so no one goes to the land of the dead, or so we think. Something can happen. That's where the story pretty much ends so far. I don't want to reveal everything as the mystery is part of the fun of the series. I left a lot of tiny details and scenes, so to find out you'll just have to read it yourself. Anyway, please read this webtoon. Trust me, it does the gothic Tim Burton style way better than Tim Burton has in the past 20 fucking years. The art is simply magnificent, the mystery intriguing, and the characters well-rounded and likable, even the downright evil ones. Just read it all, right? And if you don't, then I don't know, read A Song of Ice and Fire. Just read a book. Alright, see you guys later.
It's really not my fault. A verbal assault on me till I am free. Making cool music with my friends. I'd like to, yes, I'm sorry. I'd propose the end is coming. I pretend I'm making cool music with my friends.